Hello everybody. The purpose of this video is to go over material for chapter 1. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen so you can see what I can see, and go ahead and share that, and hopefully everybody can see that. And we have, first off, and let me go ahead and pull up my slide, and that was this one right here. And these were the goals. What are the goals for chapter 1? Well, we need to have a list of 5 items here. And since we're doing chemistry and chemistry is working with matter, and we need to identify what we have, which would be, what kind of phase do we have? Solid, liquid, or gas? Classified as matter? Is it pure? Is it a mixture? And then we get into measurements. And measurements are pretty important, and we'll spend some time on that. And accuracy versus precision, they are not the same thing, and I will show you why. And using significant figures. Now, all this material is covered in the videos. And if we look under chapter 1 videos, sure enough, we see matter, classification, matter, and all the items that I did. These videos that are on chapter 1 and chapter 2 and whatever, those videos were made for a full lecture. In other words, over an hour. And if we look at something like basic concepts, significant figures, and significant figure rules, if we pull that up, what do we see here? It's 47 minutes. Now, you're welcome, and you should watch the entire video. I'm going to go over the same material, but I'm going to try to keep it a little bit shorter and more compact because this is an online class. Okay, so if we look down here, let's go ahead and identify our phases of matter. And go ahead and pull up my whiteboard that I started on. And we have classification of matter. Now, I apologize for my handwriting. It's not the greatest in the world, and hopefully you can read it. But it gets the point across, and sometimes I'm going to misspell a word. Unfortunately, my whiteboard does not come with a spell checker. I'm not going to hold spelling against you. All right, classification of matter. Once again, matter is anything that has mass. Now, what is mass? Mass is the amount of material you have. Now, that's not the same as how much something weighs. How much something weighs depends on where you're at. In other words, if you're on Mars, things weigh less. If you're on Earth, they weigh more. But you still have the same amount of stuff. You still have that mass. All right. Now, the classification is actually there's really only 3 things that we need to classify, and that is whether something is a solid, a liquid, or a gas. And what makes the difference between these 3? Here are your 3 phases. Now, some people would say plasma is a type of matter, and it sort of is and sort of isn't. Plasma is a gas. To be a plasma, you have to be a gas. So to me, plasma is gas. It's also ionized in the sense we have plus and minus charges in a plasma. Where can we find plasma? Well, it's actually pretty easy. If you have like a fluorescent light bulb, or if you're in a classroom and you look overhead and you see the light bulbs, what's inside those tubes is actually ionized gases, which are plasmas. But we're going to limit ourselves to solid, liquid, gas. And what's the important points? Because that's really what it's all about. Solids, um, the atoms are molecules, and they cannot move around. They're fixed in position. So the substance is all fixed positions. In other words, um, with a solid, if you have an atom next to another atom next to another atom, they're not going to change places. They're going to stay put. They're going to stay where they're at. They have fixed positions, and they're very close. They're close. All right. Now, close means that for a solid, it's generally within an atom or two. Now, liquids have can move. In other words, they're not fixed positions. They can move past each other. That's called flow. And that's called flow. In other words, water flows. Why does it flow? Because when we have a liquid, the particles, hopefully these will be okay, is that they can actually move around. Now they're still close. They're still close together. They're close like solids are, but they can move, and we call that flow. Gases, on the other hand, can move, but they are far apart and very fast. And with solids and liquids, they're close together. Solids can't move around. Liquids, they do move, but they stay close to each other and they flow around each other. And gases, they're moving quickly, randomly, they're far apart and very fast. Okay, so that's your classification. So, if we were to say, what is ice? I like using water as an example of these things. We would say that's a solid, as is, say, say a desk. That's a solid too. It's different kinds of solids, unless it's all made of the same stuff. That's also a solid. And then you can have liquids. What's an example of liquid? Well, we can have liquid water or sweet tea. That's another example, sweet tea. That is certainly a liquid. We could have oil. That's a liquid. Can be rather thick, but it is a liquid. And then gases. Best example of a gas would be like the air you breathe. And once again, I apologize for my handwriting. The air you breathe, which is a gas mixture, or let's say, what do you breathe out? Carbon dioxide. Both of these are gases. And so the air that's around you is moving very quickly, and the particles are really far apart compared to solids and liquids. It's good to have some examples so that when you see a list, A, B, C, D, E, you're able to say, what's a solid, what's a liquid, what's a gas. We're not going to hit you with something like, say, well, what do you think? Is benzene a solid, liquid, or gas? Now, I know from experience that benzene is an organic solvent, is a liquid, but we don't expect that. But you should know that if you have a chunk of ice, it's a solid. If you have fog, it's a gas. It's actually an example of a colloid, which will be one of the very last things we cover. Okay, so there's your classification of matter.